Is this image of an armory underneath a hospital in Gaza real? So an image popped up on Reddit titled Hospital Equipment in Gaza, and something smelled funny about that image. So I took a look at it, and after a moment I realized that it was AI generated. So you know how I'm always harping about DIP, or deceptive imagery persuasion. This is where you create an image out of context and sometimes use selective text in order to create disinformation. Now, normally something just has to pass a cursory check. The danger here is that most people have never served in the military, and the average soldier can look at this picture and go, hey, who would store weapons like that? But the average person who looks at this and has no military experience or who has never touched a weapon might think that it's real. American comedian Stephen Colbert came up with a word to describe this back in the early 2000s. That word is truthiness. He basically defined truthiness as the truth we want to exist. It doesn't matter if it's the truth. It feels enough like the truth that we want it to be the truth. We saw this a lot in the first stages of the war with Ukraine, where people called Russian thermobaric weapons vacuum bombs and that they were banned by the Geneva Convention. And while I did a whole video about that, not only are they not vacuum bombs, there is no specific prohibition on that weapon, and a link to that video will be in the description below. We also saw it in the first few days of the Gaza conflict, where people claimed that they saw white phosphorus being used by Israel, which again is something people said was a banned weapon. So I had to spend the first few days of that conflict going, no, white phosphorus isn't a banned weapon. It has its uses as an incendiary and for creating smoke screens, but it's not banned. Now, you're not supposed to use any artillery near populated areas, but suddenly everything with a smoke trail became white phosphorus. And yes, Israel was using white phosphorus in some cases, but for people who've never seen a smoke shell or an illumination flare, yeah, that might seem like white phosphorus. And we saw this again just recently in a video of a U.S. Army specialist who claimed that he was ordered to leave his gear in Afghanistan and was charged for it when he was leaving the Army. And because he essentially blamed the current president for his lost gear, some people have such hatred for the president that they viewed and shared this post millions of times. The president and I are never going to see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that I would spread misinformation. But that video felt true to a lot of people. They wanted it to be true, and they never stopped to think, wait, what if something's wrong here? What if some claims just don't add up? And the scary part is that today, you can amplify something that has truthiness, but is not the truth, just by clicking share. And you become part of the problem. So let's break down this image. The basic gist was that this image was of a Hamas underground bunker in a hospital and had weapons and medical equipment. I'm going to walk you through some of the reasons why I think this is AI generated. I'm also going to have Cody Hatfield, the CEO of the AeroMed Lab, give us a minute to show how AI generates this kind of stuff. AeroMed Lab is a company that I kind of work for part-time, do consulting for. They use AI to create drones that will deliver whole blood products to wounded soldiers with no GPS or external commands, making them immune to jamming. Now, this might have to be a Substack exclusive. YouTube is kind of weird when it comes to showing certain subjects or images, especially regarding armament. So I'll see if I can make this up on YouTube. If you are a Substack subscriber, I appreciate it. If you've got $5 to support the channel, I'd appreciate it even more. This is my job now. So we're going to start at the macro level. We're going to go down to the individual components. So the first thing that struck me was that none of the AK variants in this video had paratrooper variants or folding stocks. It seems like most of the captured weapons seen in Israeli images are AK variants with collapsible or folding stocks. Now that doesn't mean that it's impossible for Qassam to have weapons with full stocks, but they probably favor collapsible stocks because they're lighter and easier to conceal. Now, the Wikipedia answer for maximum effective range of an AK variant or AKM is technically 350 meters. The reality is the maximum effective range is more of a function of the operator than the weapon. So doing the kind of urban fighting that Qassam is doing, you probably aren't taking shots much greater than 150 meters. So a folding stock gives you an advantage in urban terrain when you're moving around in tunnels. So that and the fact that a collapsible stock just makes a weapon easier to smuggle may indicate why we're seeing so many AKs with collapsible stocks. Not a single rifle on these walls has a collapsible stock. So that's one of the first things that kind of smells about the image. Second is the way these weapons are stored is kind of weird. You really don't want to store weapons like this against a cave wall where all kinds of moisture can get at them. You would have these weapons in racks or maybe in boxes or bags with some kind of desiccant like damp rid or silica gel. The third thing that stands out is this stuff on the wall up here. I think maybe this stuff is supposed to represent mortar rounds, but mortar rounds don't look like giant suppositories or pills. Mortar rounds have a stabilizer tube with flash holes that are designed as passageways to ignite the propellant. And storing mortar rounds without a mortar nearby or in frame, that kind of smells as well. You just wouldn't store mortars this way. Now, let's look at some of the individual weapons. There's this weapon here, which looks like it didn't render correctly. There's this weapon, which has 2 barrels, and this weapon, which looks like it has 2 magazines. So unless we're in some Cronenberg world under a hospital, I think it's safe to say that this was a mistake in the AI algorithm that generated this. So here's Cody Hatfield, an artificial intelligence PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Dallas and the director of the Texas Aeromed Lab, to explain how AI generates these kinds of images and why they make these kinds of mistakes.
Thanks, Ryan. These errors that you've described are very common in AI-generated images. They occur as a sort of byproduct of the algorithms that are used for the generation process. Now, what I've got put up on the screen here is an AI-generated image that I created earlier today. When the algorithm made this image, it didn't generate the entire thing at once. Rather, it started by making an initial version of the final image composed of just some random noise, which I'm visualizing now on the screen with some static. The AI then generated the final image by going through this noise and picking it apart piece by piece. And as it fills in the pieces, it's generating locally what it thinks the next set of the image should be based on the pre-existing image that's been revealed so far. So the reason why it does this is that by only creating one small section of the image at a time, the algorithm is able to focus its attention and its processing power on local details rather than on the entire image. And when it's taken together all at once, all of these local details combine together in order to give a single coherent final image. Unfortunately, these local convolutions are a bit of a double-edged sword from a computer vision perspective. Because while convolutions are really good at filling in the minor details of an image, they're pretty much incapable of understanding the cumulative composition of whatever image that they're building. A great example of this is, surprisingly, fingers. Our modern AIs are still notoriously bad at generating fingers. Here's an AI-generated image I created using DALL-E with the prompt "smiling director." Now you'll notice that this man has 6 fingers. This is because the AI may understand how to create individual fingers, but it doesn't understand that there are typically only 5 fingers on a human hand. It's simply focused on each individual area of the image without understanding what the total composition together represented. Now, this issue with the finger is precisely why there are so many errors present in the fake hospital image. Knowing what we know now, we can actually go through the steps and understand how some of these errors in the image came to be. If we look at this first example, we can see that there are 2 guns but 3 magazines, so clearly something went wrong here. If we begin with the random noise, and our AI fills in some of the rightmost gun, we can see that the bottom magazine is created without issue. However, as we move through the image, a second magazine is quickly created on top of the gun as well. Just like with the fingers, this occurred because the convolutional steps did not take the total composition of the image into account. The local convolutions on each side of the gun's action both understood that there should be a magazine placed roughly around that position. However, they lacked the ability to comprehend what is the appropriate number of magazines on a firearm, and so both convolutions added their own magazine without any consideration for what the other was doing. Finally, if we look at this last example, you'll notice that this gun that's hanging on the wall has 2 barrels, one that points out the front and the other that points out the back. As the first set of convolutions moved up the gun, the wooden grip was created after the action, and then the wooden grip led into the front forward-facing barrel. Then, a second set of convolutions began creating the back of the gun, and they generated the beginnings of the stock. However, at this point, the second set of convolutions became confused, because they thought that the stock was actually a second hand grip, which led them to go on and generate a second barrel facing out the back of the gun. So, just like with the fingers, the AI here hyper-focused on the local compositions to such an extreme degree that the total image lost its coherence. These are just a few of the glaring issues in this fake image, and of course, I welcome y'all to bug Ryan in the comments down below about everything that he missed. Nonetheless, these types of fake images represent a new challenge for analysts in the coming digital battle space. Just like with fake news and sensational headlines that can rip through social media in the blink of an eye, it's important for all of us together to investigate the information that we consume. And if you ever find yourself wondering if what you're seeing is fake or not, remember, count the fingers.
Thank you, Cody. You can reach the Aeromed Lab at aeromedlab.com. You can also buy one of their t-shirts or hoodies on Bunker Branding to help fund their research. So finally, I want to talk about the dangers of AI in general when it comes to conflict. So my best suggestion for you is to just think before you share. If something gives you a strong emotion, it may be an indicator that you are being lied to. And I don't think anyone wants to be lied to. Now, there might be a small population who believes in lying. They believe that the end justifies the means. And that's a truthy lie. If it's a truthy lie for their side, they might think it's worth it. You know, the ancient Greeks didn't have lawyers. As a good citizen, you were expected to be able to argue for yourself in court. This is why logic and public speaking were so important to the ancient Greeks. Now today, the average citizen has the power to create a video or a meme that can go viral. Now, memes are nothing new, but what is new is the incredible power for them to spread. But you have the power and the logic and critical thinking ability to help stop that spread. Thank you for watching.
Oh man, I'm so bored! Christ on crutches with a permanent profile. That's because you have the wrong toys! You need a Ryan McBeth in action figure from the Knife Hand Company. That's right, Ryan McBeth in action figures go everywhere! Put them on your desk, your Crocs, your keychain! You can even ask Ryan advice.
Ryan, why does Daddy ignore me when I'm over his house for the weekend?
Because your new mommy is way hotter than your old mommy! Trading cards! You get a free trading card in every box! Now that's Ryan-rific! So come on down to the Knife Hand Company and get your in-action figure today!
Alcoholism, cigarettes, and non-service connected hearing loss sold separately.